Kenny Omega, WWE, All Elite Wrestling, or New Japan Pro Wrestling? What is next for Kenny Omega after Wrestle Kingdom 13? My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti, and we will try to answer that here on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. But before we get to the discussion, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell for notifications as we're trying to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers before the Royal Rumble. We're more than halfway there. Pretty excited about that. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast provider, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share on your social media, and make sure you review so more people listen to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. So, Ralph, after Kenny Omega versus Hiroshi Tanahashi ends, Hiroshi Tanahashi becomes the 8-time IWGP Heavyweight Champion. So now the rumors and the speculation start. Where is Kenny Omega going? A lot of people have assumed All Elite Wrestling, but
correct.
All of a sudden, there's a report from Dave Meltzer saying that a fantastic offer has been given to Kenny Omega from WWE.
Sure.
And of course, there's all those people that still think, I'm one of them, that think that Kenny Omega is staying in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we'll go through each, what we think, if they're going to go, if they're not going to go, if they're going to be a good fit there, what needs to be done to get them there, and just go from there. So we'll start with WWE. We'll start with WWE because that is the hot topic right now ever since the contract offering. Do you think he goes to WWE?
In short, I say no. There's a few reasons for that, and obviously starting with the rumor that's circulating that, he was offered a contract by WWE. There's also a rumored meeting, which we can't really confirm, that he did meet at some point with Vince McMahon and Triple H. That was a rumor that was going around on the internet. I haven't really seen anything or seen anybody report anything substantial to say that meeting actually happened. But at the very least, Dave Meltzer seems to say and report that they did at least make a fantastic offer to him. At the end of the day, I think Kenny Omega is certainly an interesting character. He's somebody who has the ability to draw. I mean, a lot of everything that's going on in the wrestling industry right now, whether it's with the Bullet Club or the Elite or All Elite Wrestling, Jericho going to New Japan, I feel like he's had a big influence on all of that.
Right.
WWE knows that, and if they actually did make a big offer to him, it's for a good reason. The reasons I don't think he's going to go to WWE is because he has, one, a lot of respect for himself and a lot of respect for the professional wrestling industry and the art of wrestling. If you go to WWE, you have to understand that you're going to have to make certain sacrifices. He's going to have to make sacrifices from a character standpoint, just in his general approach to matches, I think, because one of the things I did was go back and look at, how long has the traditional or a average match lasted, a main event match for WWE. The average match for WWE main events, excluding Money in the Banks, excluding Royal Rumbles, Elimination Chambers, just a straight up match is 21 minutes.
I wouldn't think it'd be that much of a difference outside of the Royal Rumble, which is 60 minutes. But the Money in the Bank match was probably 20 or so minutes. And the Elimination Chamber had to have been 20 minutes. Sure. So that really shouldn't affect the average.
Yeah.
But again, we know even this last Wrestle Kingdom match with Tanahashi, it was the longest Wrestle Kingdom match ever.
Right.
He went an hour and 20 minutes with Kazuchika Okada at Dominion. He went over an hour and a draw with Okada. He goes over 30 minutes with Ishii and Naito and everybody else. So, yes, the time limit will be a factor. But knowing Kenny Omega in the ring, I think he could do what he can in 20 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah.
That won't be a big issue. I think one of the biggest issues with WWE as far as Kenny Omega is concerned is the moveset and the creative control.
Exactly. And that especially with the creative control.
Yes.
How much are they willing to actually give up?
Yes, a lot of people do say that the creative control does limit people in WWE, and not the wrestlers don't get that creative control. It's true. Whatever Vince says goes, but at the same time, he will listen to wrestlers and at least hear them out on certain things. He may not agree with them most of the time. He may not say, hey, this works, this won't work, whatever. But I think with Kenny Omega, he might pitch some ideas and some of them might go through. So will he have 100% creative control? No, but I think knowing what he has done in New Japan, what he could do in the ring, what he could do as a promo, Vince will listen to him.
Sure.
And the fact that he won't have any creative control, I don't think that will be an issue. He'll have some. Vince will listen to him for ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Also, let's not forget, 2020, the XFL is coming. At what point does Vince loosen the reins, not focus too much on WWE, and let Triple H take care of things? If that's the case, how much creative control will Triple H let Kenny Omega have?
Right.
So that, I don't think, is that big of an issue. It is an issue. Don't get me wrong. It is an issue, but I don't think it's the deal breaker.
Yeah. At the end of the day, my biggest concern is seeing everything that the Elite and Kenny Omega have been able to accomplish outside of the WWE. If we get a watered-down version of Kenny Omega, that's not something I want to see. I'm sure that's something that the fans don't want to see either. And I think that is a risk that he takes if he goes to WWE, because there is a chance that his character that he is right now will not appeal to the WWE universe. And I say that because you have to understand, like we touch on so many times, WWE is huge.
Yes.
They are trying to appeal to the masses. And when you say masses, that means you got kids, you got families, you got everything in between, and you have to appeal to the majority of them. Because if you just say, okay, well, we're going to stick to this one specific demographic, you risk losing all the rest of your fans, alienating your fans. So
here's the difference, though. Kenny Omega he really can go to the masses because his character revolves a lot around video games, and that's going to be a big part of this. Here's where it could be an issue, though, is Vince may see that he is a big video game guy and that will be marketable. But then they over-exaggerate the video game this, and he becomes a human video game character.
A parody of himself.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say, if you compare it to, let's say, if you look at Broken Matt Hardy, right? He was arguably one of the biggest guys outside of WWE, that character specifically was. Now, we know, obviously, there was a legal battle with him going back to the WWE. They didn't necessarily have the rights to that gimmick at the time, but they legitimately put some type of effort into making that gimmick work within the WWE. And I don't think it necessarily worked. It didn't appeal to the masses. I think a lot of people found it a little weird, and it didn't catch on the way a lot of people thought it would. And you can say the same thing about a lot of the guys that they've brought up from NXT. If you look at
Shinsuke Nakamura.
I think Shinsuke is probably the biggest example. You look at some of the things they're doing with Samoa Joe. He's in the title picture. He's out of the title picture. I think all of those things, to me, when you look at all of that, that's what concerns me about the WWE, getting a talent and getting a character like Kenny Omega. I know he can do it, but will the WWE loosen the reins and allow him to do it? I would hope they would, especially if they're going to pay him a substantial amount of money, which from what they're reporting, if you look at the top 10 contracts through 2018, they range anywhere from $2 million to $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at AJ Styles going into WWE, his current contract right now, I think he's making something like $3.5 million. I think Kenny Omega has much more momentum than AJ actually did going into the Royal Rumble. So you got to think that it's probably somewhere within, and this is purely speculation, maybe $2 to $3.5 million. Can All Elite, can New Japan really compete with that? I don't know, but I don't know if it's all about money with Kenny Omega. I don't think so.
That's the thing. That is the thing, and a lot of people have talked about this. I listened to a podcast a while back, Place to Be Nation. They interviewed Kevin Kelly, and they asked him, does Kenny go to WWE? And he said, probably not, because Kenny has too much pride in wrestling.
Yes.
And that would affect that. And he's not about the money. He's more about changing the world of professional wrestling. Yep. So, I mean, he could still do that in WWE. Don't get me wrong. He can say, guys from international promotions and Ring of Honor can end up being the top guy, even though a lot of people would speculate and say that Vince wants his own guys to be the top guys, whatever he builds.
Right.
Kenny Omega would not be that. But then again, there's AJ Styles, who built the name inside the independents, became one of the longest reigning champions ever. So the other issue that people bring up with Kenny Omega going to WWE is his moveset. Will his moveset be limited in WWE? For the most part, I'm going to say no. I don't think it's really going to be that limited. You look at, just watch the Johnny Gargano versus Aleister Black match.
Or any of the majority of the NXT matches.
Right. A lot of those moves, Kenny Omega does in his moveset. The V-trigger knee, all the chops, the reverse hurricanranas. The only thing that may be an issue is the one-winged angel, which is his finisher right now. And I understand if he can't do that, that poses a big problem. But as far as danger is concerned, I think it is at the same level of danger as the Styles Clash, which was allowed in WWE.
Right.
Styles does use it. It's not always his finisher like it was in Impact, in Ring of Honor, in New Japan. So maybe they do use the one-winged angel on certain guys that know how to take the one-winged angel.
I think anyone in the WWE is trained to the point where they'd be able to take the finisher. It's just a matter of if they're willing to let him do it. Because we've seen where, especially with Seth Rollins, he had such an original finisher with the curb stomp. They made him stop doing that for a while, eventually allowing him to do it again. The Muscle Buster with Samoa Joe. So I don't know. I feel like WWE is so strange with how they approach these types of situations, because when you look at NXT, you really get the sense that it's kind of like, okay, let the guys freelance, let them do their thing. We've seen reverse hurricanranas, we've seen crazy spots. And then when you watch the main card, it's kind of like sometimes you feel like they're honing it in or it's a little watered down. But at the end of the day, I think Kenny Omega is so talented that he'll be able to make it work for himself within the WWE if he chooses to go there.
So after all that, do you see Kenny going to WWE?
I don't. For all the reasons and all the concerns that we just talked about, I think the money in the contract, that's going to be there. I think that he, at the end of the day, this whole movement that him, the Young Bucks, Cody, Jericho, all those guys helped to create outside of the WWE, I think he's confident that they'll be able to carry on with that. He's kind of alluded to that, especially at the end of All In, where they were all kind of in the ring. He said that whatever we do, we'll do it together. There's all the rumors. I know where you guys want us to go. I don't know the exact words, but I don't think he's going to WWE.
All right. I will agree with you there. And for all the reasons that you said, I agree with you 100%. I don't think he's going. He has too much pride in the wrestling industry. He has too much pride in himself. And I think, and as far as wrestling is concerned, All Elite and New Japan Pro Wrestling will offer him more. There is, though, as far as in-ring wrestling is concerned, WWE can offer him this. Dream matches with
Certainly
AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Shinsuke Nakamura, Finn Balor, Tommaso Ciampa, John Cena, the
Lesnar,
the WWE powerhouse versus the independent guy. We saw Cena versus Styles, but Omega's a couple years younger. With Cena, he doesn't have much time left. Do they make that a WrestleMania match? If it does happen and he does go to WWE, I don't know if his contract with New Japan includes a 90-day no-compete, which will affect if he does go to WWE, when it will be. It's not the Royal Rumble, guys, so don't think that's happening. He will still be under contract for another 5 days the night of the Royal Rumble. So stop the speculations on that. That's not happening.
Yep.
But let's move on to All Elite Wrestling. Now, obviously, the reason why people think this is happening is because of the whole Elite sticking together, wanting to change the world of professional wrestling. But it is new. We don't know who's going to be on the roster. We did a draft, and we're going to have an episode soon with round 2 of guys that could be in All Elite Wrestling. Who is going to be part of this roster? And when they're part of this roster, who does Kenny Omega have matches with? Right now, he can only have matches with Cody Rhodes, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, and Hangman Page. That's it.
Britt Baker.
And Britt Baker, but I don't think they're doing intergender matches, at least with Kenny Omega.
Kenny Omega did once wrestle, I think, like a 12-year-old girl. So.
Yes, that is true. But what would, obviously people think this makes the most sense for Kenny Omega. Do you think this makes the most sense?
All Elite?
All Elite.
I do think that's where he's going to wind up. There's a few reasons I say that. One, we know that it's been kind of their mission and their credo to kind of stick together and to create this alternate wrestling promotion, which they've been very vocal about for quite some time now. And going back months now, all the way back to All In, maybe even before that, everything that we've seen would kind of suggest that that's what's going to end up happening. Now, when you look at Wrestle Kingdom, you can look at some of the winners and losers, and you can't necessarily say, okay, that's definite fact that these guys, that Kenny Omega is going to leave, but it certainly seems like they're positioning themselves for the future, perhaps without Kenny Omega. Now, does that mean Kenny Omega is done with New Japan altogether? I don't think so. I think that eventually they'll work something out where there will be inter-promotion type matches, whether it's with New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact somewhere down the line. But when you look at Wrestle Kingdom, you see that we've had the reformation. Well, you've got the firing squad, who now Jay White is essentially the leader of that. He went over Okada, who I think when you look at that, a lot of people assumed Jay White would be in a position where he would lose, but eventually get a win over Okada. I didn't expect it to be at Wrestle Kingdom because he's still so young and kind of a newer face. He's just starting to be a guy on the rise. But
they're setting him up to be the new top foreigner of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Exactly. And why are you doing that now, especially when Kenny Omega's so over? I mean, granted, yes, they are we talked about this. They're trying to expand into the West, but could they be doing that? Could they be positioning themselves with these guys, higher up in the card because they know Kenny Omega might be on his way out? So you've got Jay White, who won. You saw
Juice Robinson.
Will Ospreay got the win. You saw, obviously, Jericho drop the title. So that's all those things would kind of lead you to believe that some people are definitely going to be leaving, going to other places, whether it's WWE, whether it's, Ring of Honor, whether it's, I don't know, wherever. But at the end of the day, I think Omega is going to wind up in All Elite Wrestling.
It makes the most sense because of everybody saying they're going to stick together. We have established that. Most people think this is where he's going to end up. Here's why I don't think it's going to happen. First off, the only thing we know right now is that it's called All Elite Wrestling. Mm-hmm. We know the management is Tony Khan, who is the president. The executive vice presidents are Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks.
Yep.
And that the chief brand officer is Brandy Rhodes.
Yes.
We don't know if and where they're going to be on TV. We don't know when Double or Nothing is going to be or where it's going to be. We don't know who's going to be on the roster, who's going to share talent with All Elite Wrestling, if anybody. There's too much uncertainty.
Yeah.
So Kenny Omega right now is a certainty wherever he goes. If he goes to WWE, he is a certain main eventer. If he goes to New Japan or stays with New Japan, he stays in the main event picture. And if he goes to All Elite, he is definitely a main event guy there.
Right.
But who does he wrestle? You can't have Cody versus Kenny every Tuesday night if that's what the rumor is going to be.
Right.
So when is it where, yes, you want to change the world of professional wrestling, but what if it's too early for Kenny Omega to come to All Elite Wrestling because nothing's established yet? And that's why I think he's not going to All Elite Wrestling yet. Eventually, he will be. I think once everything's established with All Elite Wrestling, they have at least 10 to 15 guys under contract in All Elite Wrestling. They have a TV deal, whether it is TBS or TNT, which is the rumor right now, whether it is WGN America, another rumored network. Do they do something stream-wise? Some people have mentioned Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime could be possible avenues for All Elite Wrestling. Until that's all established, Kenny Omega needs to do his own thing. And if you see being the Elite on YouTube, they kind of keep him doing his own thing. He's not in sketches for the most part with the Bucks and Cody because he's in Japan, they're in the States, so it makes logical sense. Same thing with Marty Scurll. He's doing his thing with Villain Enterprises and Ring of Honor right now, at least until the G1 Supercard. Same thing. Let All Elite Wrestling develop and get established first before you bring in Kenny Omega, because if you bring in all the big names early on, you're shooting all your bullets at once and you're out of ammunition and can't reload.
Yeah. I think obviously they have the rally that's going to be going on January 8th. Certainly, I think we're going to find out much more if we're going to know anything about Kenny Omega and if he'll be there then. I don't know if we're going to know by that date, but I think they'll give us at least some more updates specifically about Double or Nothing because they said that. Maybe we'll find out about some of the speculated TV deals. One of the things also that we always talk about is how the Elite and these guys have really been able to utilize social media to their advantage. When I went on this morning, I think I went on the Young Bucks Twitter account and they had the picture in black and white of Kenny. They were walking out, interlocking arms, Kenny Omega on their shoulders. They were walking out and they were in the foreground and in the distant background, they had the ring. And I don't even think there was a caption of it on this picture. But a lot of people were speculating, is this their way of telling you that these guys are on their way out of New Japan? I don't know. It could have just been a really cool picture that they uploaded. That's certainly a possibility, but this is what you're going to get with the internet.
Well, one thing is they were never contracted by New Japan Pro Wrestling. Their contract was with Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor let them wrestle in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So they were never under contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So this, because they're no longer part of Ring of Honor, they're doing their thing in All Elite Wrestling. This is, as far as we know, their last match in New Japan Pro Wrestling for now. Mm-hmm. If New Japan decides to share talent and they go to New Japan and New Japan guys go to All Elite, then yes, they will be at Wrestle Kingdom at some point. Maybe not 14, but maybe 15 and 16 and however far All Elite Wrestling goes until that. But Kenny Omega, let's get back to this. And I'm going to move ahead and say why I think he's staying in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I already mentioned why All Elite Wrestling needs to get established. Now, you mentioned that New Japan, the way Wrestle Kingdom was booked, they're kind of doing a fresh start. Kind of what WWE was supposed to do. Wrestle Kingdom did that. They had every title changed hands. We saw basically LIJ rise. They won all their championship matches. Naito winning the Intercontinental title, Evil and Sonata winning the tag titles, and Tagashi and Bushi winning the junior heavyweight tag titles. You have Juice Robinson winning the U.S. title. You have, like you said, Ospreay winning the never open weight from Ibushi. Whether that was supposed to happen or not, we don't know because of the way the match ended. And, of course, Tanahashi dropping it or winning from Kenny Omega. I do not think this was Kenny Omega losing because he's leaving New Japan. I think this starts something else to further the storyline. If you saw Kenny Omega's Twitter over the weekend after All Elite Wrestling, after Wrestle Kingdom, he tweeted a picture of the Tokyo Dome, and the caption was 1-1, meaning Tanahashi beat him once and Omega beat Tanahashi once. Mm-hmm. That would make you believe that there is going to be a rubber match at some point. You could still do that. You can have, we talk about Jay White. Jay White taking over the Bullet Club. Kenny Omega was the last leader before Jay White. So you could set up a match with Jay White and Kenny Omega for a non-title match, maybe to be the number one contender of the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Kenny goes over. You have Omega versus Tanahashi at Madison Square Garden for the main event for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Maybe he wins it again. You have a rematch with Jay White at Dominion, and Jay White becomes the new IWGP Heavyweight Champion. You could keep Kenny Omega there till the G1 Climax for whatever, and then once All Elite Wrestling is set up, then he goes and leaves. But I say he does one more 1-year contract like he has done the last 2 years and stays in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
There's more left in the story for Kenny Omega in New Japan. I don't think this was the end.
So you think he sticks around in New Japan for one more year and then perhaps moves to All Elite once All Elite is more stable, I guess you would say.
Yes.
Actually has some foundation to it.
Yes.
I think that's fair. I think it's we both agree Kenny Omega, we don't see him in WWE
No,
going
definitely
forward.
not.
Okay.
Definitely not. Eventually All Elite Wrestling, but I do think he stays with New Japan at least one more year. And maybe he stays contracted in New Japan and just is borrowed talent for All Elite Wrestling. And he's not a full-time guy, so that New Japan has one of their top stars. All Elite Wrestling will use him whenever. Plus, the other thing, too, is he likes Japan. Mm-hmm. He lives in Japan. He knows the language. He loves the culture.
Star.
He's a big star there. He would be really putting a lot on the line. He has the biggest risk with All Elite Wrestling from a wrestling and livelihood point of view.
Absolutely.
Cody and the Bucks, they're presidents. They've got the paychecks.
For now. I mean, we've gone over this also. You know, you have to. Yes, we understand, and we read through all the comments. We see what people are saying. Stop acting like they don't have money. I understand. Tony Khan is a billionaire. They own the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to. They said he's going to put up over speculated $100 million put into this, and there's going to be a lot of financial backing. We get all of that. But they have to have revenue streams coming in. That's the one thing WWE is a guarantee about with their business. They have money coming in from multiple directions, right? With this, we understand that right now it's the hot thing, it's the cool thing, it's the place to be, it's a fresh start for a lot of people, and there's a lot of things that are speculated, but at the end of the day, if you look at like what WCW was run by a billionaire Ted. In 1999, they lost $16 million. The year following that, they lost, I think, $60 million. So just being run by a billionaire and having backing doesn't necessarily guarantee success. And yes, Kenny Omega leaving to go to All Elite is a big risk for him. Going to WWE, he's going to make he would sell a ton of merchandise, I would assume. He's going to have his contract. WWE, as bad as they do, they're getting that guaranteed revenue. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. New Japan is growing in its popularity. They've got a lot of young, fresh faces, which we talked about. So of all the places we talked about and options where he can go, All Elite is the biggest risk out of all of them.
Yes. And to piggyback off of your billionaire situation, who owns Ring of Honor? Mm-hmm. Sinclair Broadcasting, one of the biggest media companies in the world. They're worth, I think, almost $3 billion. You don't see them competing with WWE, do you?
No.
You don't?
No. Because at the end of the day, success is about culture and confidence and timing and everything that WWE was during the Attitude Era. And I'm not saying these guys can't do it. I certainly think they can. All In was a success. All In was a big reason why they were able to get the type of following that they ended up getting, and, you know, Tony Khan and all of that and the supposed TV deals and stuff like that. But, you know, there's still a lot of question marks.
Right.
A lot of question marks and a long road ahead of them.
So we'll wrap up with this. We went to our Twitter at SCPB Podcast and asked you where Kenny Omega is going next after Wrestle Kingdom 13. Out of the 181 votes that we got, thank you all for voting on that, by the way. 51% said All Elite Wrestling, 43% said WWE, and 6% say that he stays in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I thought it would have been more. I think the 6% of New Japan was going to be obvious, but I thought All Elite Wrestling was going to run away with this poll.
I think a lot of people voted either WWE or All Elite, mostly because he did drop the title, and there's a lot of speculation about his future. So who knows? Is that an indicator? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it'll be interesting what happens going forward.
All right, what do you think? Go in our comments. Is he going to All Elite Wrestling? Is he going to WWE? Or is he staying with New Japan Pro Wrestling, at least for the short term? Let us know in the comments if you like us. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that bell for notification as we're trying to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers before the Royal Rumble. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast provider, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, make sure you like there. Make sure you subscribe there and review and share on your social media, wherever it is, Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for listening to the Squared Circle Psychobabble.